The Mojave Desert stretched out beneath a sky choked with stars. The air, thick and heavy, carried the scent of dust and sagebrush. A full moon cast long, distorted shadows from the canyon walls, cloaking the campsite in an unsettling gloom. Three friends, Jordan, Leo and Maria, huddled around the dwindling flames. Their laughter, moments ago echoing in the stillness, now seemed a distant memory replaced by an uneasy silence. Jordan shivered, pulling his jacket tighter. Something wasn't right. "Did you hear that?" whispered Maria, her eyes wide with apprehension. A low growl seemed to emanate from the darkness beyond the firelight, sending shivers down their spines. Leo, ever the pragmatist, dismissed it. "Just coyotes, love. Go back to sleep." But even his voice lacked its usual confidence. The night wore on, the forest cloaked in an eerie silence that seemed almost palpable. The stars above twinkled like distant, cold eyes watching the unfolding drama below. The fire, starved of fuel, dwindled to a few glowing embers. The once roaring flames now reduced to a soft, flickering glow, casting long shadows that danced on the forest floor. Jordan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each rustle of wind, every snapping twig, sent his heart racing. His eyes darted around, trying to pierce the thick veil of darkness that surrounded them. He glanced at Maria, her face pale in the moonlight. She was staring into the darkness, her breath catching in her throat. The fear in her eyes mirrored his own, a silent confirmation of the unseen presence. "Maria," Jordan whispered, reaching out to touch her arm. His voice trembled, betraying the calm facade he tried to maintain. She flinched at his touch, her eyes wide with terror. "Did you hear that?" she breathed, her voice barely audible. The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. A faint scratching sound, like claws on rock, seemed to come from just beyond the edge of the light. It was a sound that sent shivers down their spines, a reminder of the lurking danger. Leo, his face now etched with concern, rose to his feet. "Stay here," he muttered, grabbing a burning branch from the fire. The flickering light cast an ominous glow on his determined face. As he stepped into the darkness, the shadows seemed to reach out, swallowing him whole. The forest closed in around him, the night air thick with tension and the unknown. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. Jordan and Maria sat huddled together, their eyes fixed on the point where Leo had disappeared. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Just when Jordan was about to call out, Leo stumbled back into the light. His face was ashen, his eyes filled with a primal fear Jordan had never seen before. "What is it? What did you see?" Jordan asked, his voice tight with apprehension. Leo shook his head, unable to speak. He just pointed a trembling finger towards the darkness, his chest heaving. A low growl, closer this time, cut through the stillness. It was followed by a sickening crunching sound, like bones grinding together. Jordan felt a cold dread grip his heart. Whatever was out there, it was no coyote.
"Leo! Jordan! Help me!"
Maria's voice, sharp with terror, pierced the night. It seemed to be coming from the darkness beyond the campsite. Relief washed over Jordan.
"Maria, where are you?"
he shouted, scrambling to his feet. He moved towards the sound of her voice, Leo close behind.
"Jordan!"
"Don't!" Leo's warning came too late. Jordan had taken a few steps into the darkness when he stopped dead. Something was wrong. The voice, though undeniably Maria's, had a chilling echo to it, an unnatural resonance. A figure emerged from the shadows. It walked on two legs, its silhouette eerily familiar. "Maria?" Jordan whispered, his voice thick with hope and dread. As the figure stepped into a patch of moonlight, Jordan felt his blood run cold. It wasn't Maria. It wore her shape, her clothes, but the resemblance ended there. The creature's movements were jerky, almost mechanical, as if it was struggling to maintain the facade. The face was a grotesque mockery, twisted into a horrifying grin, a parody of human expression that sent chills down their spines. The eyes, burning with a malevolent light, seemed to pierce through the darkness, locking onto their every move. The creature that had been stalking them in the darkness had taken on Maria's form. It was a cruel mimicry, designed to lure them into a false sense of security. A guttural snarl erupted from the creature, and it lunged with a speed that defied its twisted form. Jordan and Leo barely had time to react before it was upon them. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they turned and ran. They scrambled back, tripping over rocks and scrub as they fled blindly into the night. The forest seemed to close in around them, every shadow a potential threat. The creature, its movements unnaturally swift and silent, was right behind them. Its presence was a constant, terrifying reminder of the danger they were in. The chase seemed to go on forever. Time lost all meaning as they ran, their only focus on survival. The desert, once familiar, had become a labyrinth of shadows and fear. Every turn seemed to lead them deeper into the unknown. Jordan could hear the creature's ragged breathing behind him, a constant reminder of the relentless pursuit. He could feel its hot, fetid breath on his neck, a sickening sensation that spurred him to run faster. His lungs burned, his legs screamed for respite, but he dared not slow down. Stopping meant certain death, and he wasn't ready to give up just yet. Just when Jordan thought they were done for, the first hint of dawn touched the eastern sky. The darkness that had seemed so impenetrable began to wane, and a sliver of hope pierced through the gloom. It was a sight for sore eyes, a promise of survival after a night filled with terror. As the darkness began to recede, the creature let out an ear-splitting shriek and abruptly veered away, melting back into the shadows like a nightmare fading with the sunrise. Its retreat was as sudden as its appearance, leaving behind an eerie silence that was almost as unsettling as the creature itself. Jordan and Leo collapsed onto the cold desert floor, gasping for breath. Their bodies were exhausted, their minds reeling from the night's events. The ground was hard and unyielding, but it felt like a refuge compared to the horrors they had just escaped. They lay there for a long time, the silence broken only by the pounding of their hearts. The vast desert around them was eerily quiet, as if holding its breath in the aftermath of the chaos. The tranquility of the morning was a stark contrast to the terror that had gripped them just hours before. As the sun rose higher, painting the canyon walls in hues of gold and crimson, the horror of the night began to feel like a distant, terrible dream. The warm light brought a sense of normalcy, a reminder that life goes on even after the darkest of nights. But the nightmare wasn't over. Maria was gone. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut, shattering the fragile peace that the dawn had brought. Their friend was missing, and the fear for her safety was overwhelming. They searched for her until the sun was high overhead, their calls echoing unanswered through the empty canyons. Every shadow, every crevice was scrutinized, but there was no sign of her. The vastness of the desert seemed to swallow their voices, amplifying their desperation. The only trace of her they found was a scrap of her torn shirt, snagged on a thorny bush. It was a small, heartbreaking clue, a silent testament to her struggle. The sight of it filled them with a renewed sense of urgency and dread, knowing that the desert held more secrets than they could fathom. Jordan and Leo never spoke of that night again. They left the Mojave, their lives forever marked by the terror they had experienced. The desert, once a place of peace and solitude, had become a haunted landscape, forever etched in their nightmares. And Maria? She was never seen again. Some say she wandered lost in the wilderness, driven mad by the horror of that night. Others whisper that she became one with the creature, her humanity swallowed by the darkness. But in the desolate canyons of the Mojave, under the cold light of the desert moon, her fate remains a chilling mystery.